you decide to sit down and use your precious minutes to listen to this podcast that you will never get back, mind you, we found it best consumed with a bottle of Sundrop, Cheerwine, or whatever other random soda, preferably in front of a warm TV fireplace beside your loved ones. Been friends for forever, birds of a feather, come from different places as you will see. Things change with the weather, could always be better. Grab a plate and sit down with me, meat and three, meat and three.
Every time. It never gets old. Never gets old. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Meat and Three podcast, where the stories are as rich as gravy and the sides steal the spotlight. I'm JP, your host for tonight and culinary co-conspirator. And we're here to bring you big helpings of Southern flavor, culture, and conversations hotter than a cast iron skillet. Every week, as you know, we dish out 3 unrelenting topics with full of side stories that'll feed your mind and your soul. So pull up a chair, throw the earbuds in, grab some sweet tea, and let's dig in. You guys ready?
Ready. So ready for that.
What does unrelenting mean?
It just never stops. The stories just don't stop. They don't stop. The stories don't stop.
Even if our listeners want them to stop at some point.
Even when they stop, the stories keep going.
Especially when they want us to stop.
Yeah, that's when we unrelent even harder.
Yes.
I'm good. Oh man. All right, let's get going tonight, fellas. Ed, why don't you kick us off with tonight's sponsor?
Glad to. Speaking of unrelenting pain, this episode of Meat and Three is brought to you by the Neck Surgeons of America, the leading experts in neck care and surgery. You've got unrelenting pain, they are your game. Whether you've been suffering from chronic neck pain or just want to stay ahead of potential issues, the Neck Surgeons of America are here to help you get back to living a pain-free life. They offer world-class care with a focus on the latest surgical techniques and minimally invasive procedures. So if you're dealing with neck pain, don't wait. Reach out today to learn more and find the treatment that's just right for you. And a big shout out goes to Johnny, speaking of unrelenting pain, for bringing up the importance of neck surgeries in your last episode. We're all glad that you brought that up. Thanks for raising awareness, Johnny, wherever you are. We know that you're glad to be in unrelenting pain.
Is there any advice there on investment options?
No,
Yeah,
we can't give investing advice.
Adding to my portfolio
Yeah.
neck surgeries.
Everyone should do their own research on that.
Yeah.
So we can't.
They're well balanced, though, I'm sure. Well balanced.
Yeah,
All right,
our most watched clip from episode 5, for our listeners who didn't see our most watched clip, was Johnny suggesting investing in neck surgeries. And so obviously some people from that wonderful association heard that, and we're thankful for their sponsorship.
They gave us a boatload of money.
That's
People want to be. You want to know what what's the next Facebook? Like, how do I get in on
the ground level? Yep.
on Dogecoin? Before it skyrockets and goes to the moon. Like, could be neck surgery.
Don't sleep on the trades. Like everything's going cyber and we're everything is cyclical, so it's going to go back to trades. Neck surgery.
Go back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Welding and neck surgery.
Welding, HVAC.
I mean, they weld the neck together. Is that not the same thing? I mean,
Boom.
Absolutely.
That's what I call diversifying my bonds, baby.
That doesn't make sense.
Go with it.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to this week's fan messages. And don't forget to email us your comments to meatand3podcast@gmail.com. Also, comment on any of the socials. Every comment gives us a little more self-esteem. And we had no self-esteem from last episode. So, but send those to us. And this first letter, now this is what's neat. This is what really hits home with us when we get a letter about something that happened in an episode a month and a half ago. And so this email came in from Nunya. They wanted to be anonymous, and it needs a little context. If you remember, episode 2 was the infamous toilet paper technique debate, right? Lots of people.
There's no debate, but keep going.
This email came in more than a month after the episode aired, and it says, I haven't used toilet paper without thinking of your podcast. Keep expanding the possibilities. And there was actually emails back and forth, and this guy also mentioned in a follow-up email that he's a folder, but admitted that he did give the scrunch a try after the show.
Yeah, baby. Yep. Yeah, baby. Changing lives, one listener at a time.
Changing lives. And again, in my opinion, saving money when you fold. Right?
Exactly.
We actually had a guest at the house last night. This just happened. That stayed in the room where I put the bidet.
Oh no.
Did they try it out?
Oh no.
Well, see, I don't know. Do I ask him if he tried my bidet out?
Yes, you do.
How do you not ask?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You say, how did you
get him on?
Get
him on here right now.
I don't
He
know
was staying in the room.
I don't know that I want to know the answer.
Did you adjust the heat
The temperature.
of the temperature of the bidet? We don't want another Panama story that
the Panama
that
Post.
Ogre said.
This is a very cheap bidet, and so there is no temperature gauge. So now I will say, guys, I listened to all 5 episodes, and we talk about scatological stuff
a lot.
a lot. And I don't know if that's because we think our listeners want that, or just because that's what we want to talk about.
Well, here we are talking about it one more time.
Yeah, that's right.
Episode
As
6.
we should.
I think we're
The streak is alive.
If you're going to tune in to the meet and three,
What streak are we talking about?
if you're going to tune in to the meet and three, just be prepared for number 2. You know.
Hey,
There it is. Yes.
man.
wow.
Oh man.
Oh, never gets
These
old.
crappy
So.
jokes.
How are we not getting paid to do this yet? I mean, my goodness.
Sherman should definitely be a sponsor. We got to look into that.
Good guy. That's a good call. That's a good call. So, all right. Next letter's for Johnny. So he had a sponsor that sponsored us because of him. We've got a letter now from him, but I'll go ahead and read it. This is actually from Mrs. Jenkins, who is Johnny's math teacher in high school. Didn't say if it was trigonometry, calculus. It's just
He didn't get those.
math.
Okay.
Just math. High school math. Dear John, I guess
Probably what
is
it
that
was.
what he?
High school math.
She says, "Dear John." Did he go by that?
Yeah.
Is that his John?
Probably. Yeah.
Are we sure this is about
Why
math?
About math?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dear
John
John.
letter?
Dear John.
Dear John. Oh yeah.
We're getting Dear John letters.
Yeah. Dear John, about that ACT test you're going to take, how much math do you use in your adult life that I taught you in high school? So since Johnny's not here to answer that question, for all of us, how much high school math?
I didn't have her as a math teacher, so I don't know.
I don't know, but
Well, whoever
Miss
your Miss
Buckley-
Jenkins is.
Yeah, Miss Buckley would be very proud of me being able to still recite the quadratic equation: x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a.
Come on.
And that's it.
When's the last time you used that though?
I
That's
don't-
the question.
I don't know what I don't. That was the thing about algebra. That was the trouble. Like even then,
Trouble.
the
Definite article. The trouble.
Yeah, the trouble. Like application. You know, like you walk into first or second grade. And it's like 1 and 1 makes 2. Like I can see, boom, I got to know that. You know, do I have $1 or $2? You know, but you get to high school algebra and they're like, all right, a squared.
So we have 2 trains starting.
Yeah.
One train started at 12 o'clock and headed east, and then a second train started at 2 o'clock, going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah. What's the answer?
That's never come up in my.
You call Amtrak and they just tell you on the phone.
Yeah.
Or you
They've got
ChatGPT.
They've got an app for that.
So I was
Tio,
substitute teaching a 9th grade math geometry class. I think it was geometry. And, I got so bored sometimes substitute teaching. And so this class, I was like, I'm going to learn it real quick. And we were calculating the area. Y'all remember area of a trapezoid? And I was like, I'm going to learn this because I want to teach all day long. And so like I watched a YouTube video calculating this. So I'm just like, I'm going to teach. And so I was supposed to let the kids figure it out, but I taught.
Is your house a trapezoid?
No, I have no clue.
Right,
but here's all I know. By the last period of the day, I realized I had been teaching them incorrectly.
Yeah. Well,
like we were getting the wrong answers. I finally looked in the back of the book and got the right answer, and I've been teaching them wrong. And I'm like, but I never use. I mean, when do you calculate the area of a trapezoid?
In the real world, you're going to draw a line, and you're going to find the area of a triangle and a square, and you're going to add those together.
Right. You're gonna use Pythagorean theorem.
I don't even.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
I don't understand anything you just said.
Is that actually true, Sid? Is that where I would use that?
It is.
If
That's not the truth.
Yep.
I'll be darned.
If I can't Google it, I just figured that it's unknowable.
Yeah.
Tio, you talk about walking into first and second grade and learning 1 and 1 is 2. That's what I did in college. Like my major required a class called Fundamental Concepts of Math.
You talking about Mike Johnson just rocking your world?
I took my for sure.
We were in the third month of that class, and we were adding and subtracting negative numbers. That was like that was the apex of that class. And I was like, this is great. This is all I need in life.
We should have been able to count family and financial planning as 2 credits for the math and the financial planning.
That's what I'm saying. Rob, when you're a president of a university one day, can you please make personal and family financial planning a required?
Absolutely,
a required course for every person, regardless of their major.
See, for high school, I understand wanting to have that general knowledge, but when you go to college and you're paying all this money for classes to take classes, like I'm horrible at science, and I just look back going, why was I taking science in college? I understand high school to say we're trying to have a basic knowledge of all things, but college, I'm like, why would I spend that much money on stuff that I'm literally not going to use? It's not for my career. Like that's a piece like I don't quite grasp the college route.
Well, so apparently Dwayne Wilson was he thought the purpose of you spending so much money in his personal and family financial planning class was for him to explain why he was still driving a 1982 Chevrolet S10 in 2001. And he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong.
Johnny was too, wasn't he, with the Bully Gang?
Was that the guy from the Beach Boys?
Yeah.
Close.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say Dwayne Wilson listens to the podcast, and I was about to. That guy. I was going to be pumped about that, but
I can see him rolling down the road in that 82 S10, just chuckling.
Yeah. So all right.
I tell you, I was thinking. Sorry to interrupt, but I was thinking like people who do so I'm a loan officer, right? And I should know math, but I just break out the old calculator on the computer. But like some of the smartest mathematicians I know, like without fail, are people in trades, like plumbers, construction workers.
Yeah, 100%.
Those are
100%.
geniuses when it comes to math. I mean, construction workers, they can tell you like fractions upon fraction. I'm like, you guys blow my mind.
If you can read a ruler down to the 64th, then doing math is like that's like wiping your butt.
Right.
It's just second nature.
Clumping.
To bring it full circle back to scatological stuff.
Going back to trades, and that's why those people are getting paid $100 an hour.
Absolutely.
When you need them, right? Because
they should.
So love it.
Because idiots like me are trying to find the area of a trapezoid to figure out how much carpet I need. And they're like, well, you got a triangle and a square. So why don't we just do those two and add them together?
The fence in the front of our house, the clamp broke off my fence. So it just, kept opening and closing. And I had to hire a welder. Took him 20 minutes, $300.
Yeah.
I'm just like, and I was like, thank you. This has been broken for 6 months. That's the only way to fix it.
Yeah.
Duct tape doesn't work.
fix it or move. That's your option at that point. Right? I can't do this. Somebody's got to do it for me.
All right, Kevin, kicking it to you for topic 1 tonight.
Well, it is about time that we bury all this trash we've been talking about for the past 5 minutes and move on to something else. So let's move on to burial or cremation. You know, all of us are over the hill, right?
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. All of us
Some
are
of
over
us
the
more
hill.
than others, Sydney.
Right. So we're basically dead. So we need to start thinking, in that direction. Burial or cremation. Apparently there are a lot of Florida Gator fans, and this probably goes on at Neyland Stadium and Bryant Denny and everywhere else too. They want their ashes spread at their respective holy lands. The hill, the swamp, the plains. Not that Bryant Denny is on the plains, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I'll allow it.
Man.
What do you want? You gentlemen here at the peanut gallery. Are you going in the ground whole? Are parts of you, is some of you going in the ground? Are you got options today. I think there's an option to have my ashes compounded into a diamond that I can then leave my loved one.
There you go.
Yep, and she can wear. Isn't that what Angelina Jolie? What was it? She wore like. Oh, that was blood.
Like a vial of blood. Billy Bob's blood. Yeah.
Billy Bob's
totally.
Blood. That's right.
Totally normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But blood, dead ashes, buried in the ground. What are we doing? What do you want?
So before we talk, I was thinking about this earlier about the spreading the ashes over a football stadium or a football field, and when they do that, it's like they're playing football, they're trampling all over these people, and they're playing football over an ash cemetery and stomping on the ashes, and these people will never ever rest in peace. And so I don't know. It's like I wonder, if they, because they're stomping all over dead people. Have there been any like poltergeist events reported at any of these stadiums?
100%, Sid. But the trouble is, you don't believe in ghosts.
That's probably true.
You stole it from me, Kevin. You stole it from me.
Well played, sir.
Yeah,
man. Awesome.
Well played, sir. It's like I guess you have to. This has been an argument for years. Like if you just take the Christian argument, like Christians have considered for years, is it wrong to be cremated? Like is that does that somehow like is that not honoring the body that God gave us? If you cremated, you might miss out somehow on the resurrection, as if God could not, if the goal was to like your earthly body somehow being restored, I mean, God could certainly restore that back. But I think that's where you have to, I think the main argument falls within like where how, I'm struggling to put this concisely, but what you believe is the right thing to do with the earthly body you've been given.
Yeah, I've heard that same argument, and the guy who said it, he has a pretty big podcast, and he came to the conclusion that, or he made the case that we shouldn't be cremated, but I didn't find his arguments very compelling. So
I know that I'm not the one to ask what the godly thing to do is with my earthly body.
Right.
Yeah. Based on life up to this point,
Right.
If I get cremated, I think God's going to wink at that compared to, some other shenanigans.
Well, our church has built a, what are they? Columbarium. Have y'all heard of those? No. A columbarium on our church property. So if we're talking about some people are saying that Christians shouldn't do this, and now we've got a church that builds a columbarium, which is where you put your ashes in spots. So we now got that on our church campus, and I think we've got like 100 spots, and it's like a park, and that opened like last year. So, because you think about churches used to have cemeteries on the property,
yeah,
right?
sure, yeah. I mean, what's the difference there? I guess, yeah.
Columbarium.
Here's how much God considers our bodies. Moses looked at the promised land, and then God snatched him up, and nobody ever saw his body again.
That's
true.
know.
Yeah. Do you think it's I was thinking about, like, what about financially? You know, it's
just being a good steward getting burned.
That's what I'm saying. Throw me in a Dutch oven somewhere and let me marinate one last time. I mean, I don't know. I was thinking, but even now, like cremations, aren't they still like $3,000 to $4,000? I mean, they're still pretty expensive, I think.
You want to Ed, I'm glad you went biblical with this. So if you want to take the good stewardship to the next level, let's look at it from the standpoint of the parable of the talents, 1, 5, and 10. If I'm cremated and turned into a diamond, that's an appreciating asset.
There we go.
I don't think that was the point of the parable. I don't think that was the point of the parable.
Matter of fact, in that parable, the guy sticks the talent in the ground and gets in trouble for it.
Just stop.
But how do you know that the ashes that you get back are your ashes? Like how do you even know that,
like what if they messed up or something?
Yeah.
You got someone else's ashes.
When you take a deer process and you wonder the same thing,
I do.
That's right. I probably lean more I probably lean more toward burial. I think that's just more traditional. I think a lot of it's depends on how your family tradition. I think that certainly plays into it. But I lean to burial. But I will tell you, cremation for the jokes might be the way to go. And I say that because
example, please.
Okay, I got one. So when my son's girlfriend came over and had dinner with us for the first time, we're just getting to know her and she's getting to know us, and she was asking us questions about our dog Chipper, and I said, well, we've got another dog, and she's like, you do? I was like, yeah, Batman. She's like, well, where's Batman? So I went and in the cabinet in our kitchen. I brought out Batman, who may or not be. And if you're listening on this and not watching us online, I'm holding up an urn with what could be my dog Batman's ashes. But the look on her face made it all worth it. Our dog had died while our boys were away, and we got him cremated and got his ashes, we think, back. To
as well be
to have some closure, so they could have some closure when they got home, and he set out for a long time, and then eventually you're like, well, we got people coming over, let's move the urn out of the way. We just kind of stuck it up in the kitchen cabinet and forgot about it. So
it's like a cookie jar.
Honestly, though, you're gonna need to put a Batman sticker on that.
That's a good point. Yeah. So every now and then we break out Batman, introduce people to our second dog.
But if someone's
go ahead, Rob.
If someone's cremated, do you have to get their ashes back? I mean,
you don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, they asked us, like, do you want it? I assume it's probably the same with a person, but like they're like, do you want the ashes? We're like, yeah, we'll have them.
So is that thing like sealed up? Like, can you open it?
I mean, should I? I mean,
I didn't say
you should.
I'm not asking you to. I was just curious. Like,
it's a screw. It's a screw top.
Because
yeah.
What is it? Isn't it? Isn't it Meet the Parents that?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's another movie that had a cremation scene in it, The Big Lebowski. You guys remember that part where he like dumped out the ashes on the beach, and it went all over the dude.
Dude.
Yeah. You want to be mindful of the wind in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Donnie.
All right, topic two. Topic two. All right, this is the season of church camp. In fact, Sid is at church camp right now. Ed and Johnny go next week. I go in July. And church camp has been a big part of a lot of people's lives growing up. And then obviously as you become an adult and sometimes you're a counselor. And so we have entered church camp season. And so perfect opportunity to think back to our younger days and talk about best church camp memories from your childhood.
The very first time I went to church camp was at Reelfoot Youth Camp. You guys probably know where that is. At the time, when I was, I guess the first summer I would have gone there would have been like, I don't know, 91, 92.
Gracious.
Rustic. So from the mess hall to the boys' cabins, there was a path, but it was still overgrown. So like you could walk on a path, but your body was still navigating bushes, so you're just all week long back and forth bush, just rubbing up. And I guess it was like the second to last day, my crotch began to itch, like nothing I had ever experienced in my 11 years of life up to this point.
It's like biblical.
Yeah,
Old
I mean,
Testament.
I mean, like, trouble like staying seated, and trouble like keeping my hands out of my pants, that kind of thing. And as it turned out, that was my first case of chiggers, and they were rampant. They were rampant, and I just vividly remember my parents picking me up, us getting home, my mom being like, "What are you doing? Like, what is going on?" And I had to drop trowel and let Mama T check out what was going on down there. But that was my very first.
I thought you were going to say poison ivy, but that's worse.
Yeah.
Well, and Kevin, I thought you were going to say, so 2 years ago, I was a camp counselor, and I was put on chafing patrol.
Oh,
so many kids, like it was unreal, and that's what I thought you were going. So many kids started chafing during the week, and I mean, just walking like they're riding a horse, and it was just they were just dropping like flies, and so we were at this pond they were playing in. I was literally just transporting back and forth, and it was all chafing. And,
do you think this is a direct result of high fructose corn syrup or trans fat?
Yeah.
Or red dye or whatever that.
Yeah.
Correlation, not causation.
One early story that I had was the first camp that I went to. I believe it was the first one that I went to. They had a rifle range, like you could shoot actual guns.
Oh, wow!
And they were 22s.
Did you say this was church camp?
It was a church camp.
Yeah,
it was church camp in Alabama, and so that was my first experience with guns. As like I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and like shooting a rifle. And luckily I didn't shoot anyone, because I'm sure I was like the worst shot they had. But this is kind of a crazy thing for me. Like here's a gun, you can shoot it.
There you go. Hey, rammer jammer, yellow hammer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's right, brother.
Oh yeah.
I think more people would go to church camp. If
I know. Yeah, I don't know if they still do that.
Kind of
I should
liability issue
still
at all.
do that. Yeah.
Kevin, you mentioned the word rustic about your church camp, and I feel like so many camps have been updated in the past years. The one that we go to now, I call it a bougie church camp. I mean, there's air conditioning set on 68, bathrooms are clean, Wi-Fi. I mean, it's good camping. But I grew up going to Leatherwood, that I know has been updated now. But back in the day, there was no air conditioning, no bathrooms in the cabin. So when you had to go to the bathroom at night, you had to walk along a path about 200 feet to a bathroom with every animal in there. I mean, it's not a good memory. That was traumatizing.
So that's a great segue for Joe Askew and I were counselors at Western Kentucky Youth Camp for 3 or 4 summers. We were counselors together. And we had the little boys' cabin. Sid, what are the youngest boys out there this week? How old are they?
I think they just completed 2nd grade.
Yeah, okay, like little kids. Yep. So back then, bathroom situation was very similar, Rob. Once you left the friendly confines of the front porch of your cabin, you were walking around in basically the Amazon jungle and headed hopefully in the direction of the bathhouse to use the bathroom if that's what unless we're guys, sometimes you don't go all the way to the bathhouse.
Yeah, that's right.
This little boy, he's like, you ain't gonna catch me outside. Also, he was like, you know what I'm not gonna be the dude that pees in his sleeping bag. So what he did was he got up in the middle of the night, peed on his sleeping bag, and got back in it and slept the rest of the night in the dry. And the only reason we knew this is because it's a waterproof sleeping bag, and whenever we woke up the next morning, the whole cabin smelled like urine. And we were like, all right, what happened, guys?
Oh man,
the cabins that we have. Just real quickly, I know you're about to start, JP, Joe Nathan. The cabins we have been updated. I mean, they have like Wi-Fi. They have the bathrooms. They have the AC. I had none of that stuff growing up. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I would wake up at we didn't have like a full week of church camp growing up. We went to Maribah on the weekends. We just had a long weekend type thing. And that was before Maribah was updated. And I often woke up in wet sheets, not because I peed in them, but because it was so hot in there, and you sweated, and even with no covers on, you just soaked through whatever you're sleeping on. I did go to Mid-South Youth Camp one time when I was 10, and one of the memories I have of that is that I got into a great bit of trouble because I got roped in with a kid who was a couple years older. I was 10 at the time. A couple years older than me, and he had this brilliant scheme, which I didn't see anything wrong with it. When he pitched it to me, he was like, "Hey, let's go to Canteen and buy all of the lemon heads and all of the Alexander the grapes." And I'm like, "Okay, what are we gonna do with them?" He's like, "Then we're gonna turn around and sell them for 25 cents more to the people in camp." And so I'm like,
he'd been reading the parable of the talents.
I like money.
Full circle.
So that's what we did.
Right.
We did it 2 days in a row with different candy each day before we got busted by the director, and we got pulled aside and instructed in the ways of the Lord that wasn't
Alexander the Great.
a good
Was
thing
there a
to
rule
do.
against
And
that?
so,
Come on.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't read that on the disclaimer that I had to say.
I know, right?
So I have that memory, and then we do church camp. I don't attend. I stay and keep the lights on at the home for my wife and my boys to attend.
Such a sacrifice.
But it's such a sacrifice. I mean, somebody's got to stay with
that's
the one dog that we have
next
who's
topic.
alive.
That's the next topic. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say, like, just to get serious for a minute, like it is such a. I mean, church camps are such a sweet time for like the emotional high and the spiritual high these kids get. Like, it can really, it's the highlight of our church's summer and really the year. I baptized my oldest at church a couple years ago, and so like that, just that aspect of it where you've got, all those people together away from the outside world, focused on one thing, doing a bunch of crazy, silly things, but like, having all things in common. It's like, it's one of the closest things that our kids get to be a part of from like an Acts 2 environment, I think. And so from that perspective, man, you get all kinds of fun stories out of it. But man, that's such a blessing for kids to be able to be part of that. And so I'm thankful for men like you who are making that happen and giving your time and your PTO to go out and give these kids a great experience. So well done, lads.
Can I tell you what I'm nervous about this year? I'm snoring now.
Uh-oh.
And I'm afraid I'm going to be that guy in the cabin, when we were kids.
I thought you solved that, Rob.
Yeah, I thought you were using the hostage tape.
So I'm using hostage tape, and it's been working a lot.
Doesn't sound bad at all.
Last night, Rachel woke me up twice saying you're snoring, and it's been a while since that happened. And I was a little congested, but I was wearing my hostage tape, and I'm just like, man, I'm so nervous to go to camp and snore. And those kids.
Have you tried the strips?
I've got I wear hostage tape and the strip and an eye mask.
On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, when you jerk that hostage tape off of that mustache in the morning, what kind of pain are we talking? Are we talking about the kind that Johnny's in right now, or
no? 2 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, it's not bad.
I got the wrong hostage tape, man. I've tried it, dude.
You got the real hostage tape.
You just duct tape.
It says gorilla on it.
Oh, yeah.
It is no bueno.
Couple stories, camp stories. So I didn't grow up in a church. I didn't grow up going to camp. But as a youth minister, that was our big event each year. And so a lot of energy, time, and resources went into that. And I was charged. My first year was really weird. They'd been going to a camp, and then they said they wanted to, pluck out of the camp and do our own camp. And so you had all these factions in the church want to do this and that. But anyway, it went off really, really wonderfully. It was actually at Yes Camp. We had our first year for those of you who've been there. And y'all know where the road, where the mess hall's at, and then the road, and then there's cabins down there. We put a slip and slide on the road that went over the gravel and down. So people, if you did it right, you went flying down and you got air as you went over that road and then down into the fire pit. So yeah, that was, I'm glad I didn't get fired for that. At Dyersburg, not Dyersburg, what am I thinking of? The lake, Reelfoot Lake. We went there a couple of years, and T-ville, that hill that's coming down from that boys' cabin now. It's that massive hill. Well, I drove the church bus up it at night, and unbeknownst to me, there was this limb hanging out, and I shattered 3 massive church bus windows. And a guy was one of the chaperones was there. He looked at it and he was like, "Well, that's gonna stink," and so shattered those. At that same camp, I had to take one of the kids and another chaperone to the emergency room because of a tick infestation that they had. Yeah, there was ticks all over various places on the human anatomy, and so we had to take them there. But yeah, I meant so many different. But to JP's point, in all seriousness, that was kind of the moment where a lot of we were really evangelistic with that week. We spent a lot of time discipling over the year, and then really, we geared everything, all the classes that we had, all the messages, we geared those towards, really towards the unchurched, but also for our folks who were there. And man, we just had a lot of baptisms there, but really we used that week to kind of disciple, and it was just, in all seriousness, a lot of shenanigans, but just a lot of fun, man. Good stuff.
So you bust out 3 church bus windows.
3
on the, on the ride back to Springfield, or is it just
all open, man, wide open? Yeah, and it was like 95. And so luckily we had another bus that all the kids, and I took all the luggage and then just rode. You know, you couldn't even hear the radio, just, 95-degree air blast in your face with
Shards of
various
glass
glass shards. Yeah, various
Yeah.
glass shards, flying in out it. Yeah, that was great. Explain it to the elders. Luckily, one of the elders, and this is only a God thing, because one of the elders got in a wreck with our old bus 2 weeks before. So what I did was nothing compared to what he did. And so it was just a God thing working out for me.
So we've talked on here before, those of us who had youth ministry classes about, David Baker and the content, whatever. And it's funny, you would think that in that class you'd be covering maybe doctrine or discipling techniques. No, like 97% of the class was what Ed just talked about. How to
throw a pizza party.
How to navigate busting out 3 church bus windows at camp and not lose your job.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a master at that.
How to be on chafe and tick patrol and not use your job.
Yeah. TP is also known as tick patrol, is an important function in camp. So
Yeah. My family, we've all found ticks on us this week at the camp that we're at.
I found a Lone Star tick on me yesterday.
Yep. Oh, dude.
The Lone
away.
Star.
Yes.
Yeah, that gives you alpha gal. Yeah. Yesterday.
they're bigger in
which
Texas.
means that you are now allergic to red meat, so you don't want to get that.
Nope.
Yeah.
No,
So one thing that I like. So this is my daughter's 4th year coming to church camp, and she loves it. But this is my 2nd year in a row, and my wife was able to come this year. So it has been a pleasure for us to be able to experience camp with her. And like yesterday, for instance, she went fishing, and I mean we don't really go fish. We're not big fishers, but she caught her first fish at church camp, and it was a nice sized fish, and it's not just like all spiritual. We're also having like all these other things that are happening, and so it's kind of the whole package that you're experiencing. It's a lot of fun, but it's also spiritually edifying, and getting closer to people. It's a really great experience.
If fishing's not spiritual, we're not reading the same New Testament, man.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
That's true. I know where you're going with that.
The question is,
right.
can you use a rifle and shoot at a fish?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, if you could marry the camp you grew up at,
Exactly.
and what happened yesterday with your daughter,
yeah. But one thing I don't like about our church camp, one of the rules is no pranks, it takes a lot of the fun out of it.
I went to one. I went to one that encouraged it. It was
I know, right?
competition. Yeah,
That's right.
it's probably ill-advised.
I know.
All right, we ready to wrap this thing up?
Please.
Let's move on to topic 3. So topic 3 is always our we save the best for last. So we're gonna start topic 3 off with a little different tonight. I'm gonna read a passage from Luke 10, a very familiar passage, and then we'll dive into the final topic. Luke 10. A legal expert stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to gain eternal life?" Jesus replied, "What's written in the law? How do you interpret it?" And he responded, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said to him, "You've answered correctly. Do this and you'll live." But the legal expert wanted to prove that he was right, so he said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho. He encountered thieves who stripped him naked, beat him up, and left him near death. Now it just so happened that a priest was also going down the same road. When he saw the injured man, he crossed over to the other side of the road and went on his way. Likewise, a Levite came by that spot, saw the injured man, and crossed over to the other side of the road and went on his way. A Samaritan who was on his journey, came to where the man was. But when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. The Samaritan went to him and bandaged his wounds, tending them with oil and wine. Then he placed the wounded man on his own donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took 2 full days' worth of wages and gave them to the innkeeper. And he said, "Take care of him, and when I return, I will pay you back for any additional cost." What do you think? Which one of the 3 was a neighbor to the man who encountered thieves? Then the legal expert said, "The one who demonstrated mercy toward him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." So, final topic tonight. What stands out to you about this story? And really, mainly, like, what does this look like in our world today? What does the parable of the Good Samaritan lived out look like in the year of our Lord 2025?
Stuff.
It is good stuff. I didn't write it, but still good. Who's got thoughts?
One thing that is a common theme throughout the New Testament, I guess particularly in the Gospels, is the heart that Jesus has for those that are more marginalized. You know, the people that are outcasts, the people that they have a shady past, or you know, the tax collectors. You know, whatever person fits that category. And a lot of times we focus on the Good Samaritan, but you know, there's this man that needed help, and no one wanted to touch him, no one wanted to be around him, and I think that's a lesson that we kind of, we often miss when we look at the Good Samaritan story. And so, like Jesus, he said, invite the poor, invite the crippled, invite the lame, the blind to your banquets. Take care of these people that need help. Show compassion to these people. And so, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't solely focus on the Good Samaritan. There's also, the man himself that needed help. To think about.
Amen.
So often when I read these passages, I often just want to stop and remind myself. We often talk about people that need help in other countries, right? And we know that we can go build a well in India and give clean water to somebody. And we know that we can take food over there and people really need it. And my mind often goes to those other countries. And I just have to remind myself as I read this passage, this happens in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Right. And it is not, yes, it happens everywhere. And it may be a little easier to see the people on the road that need help, but it's happening where I am. And the question I have for myself is it that my eyes are not trained well enough to see it? Or am I choosing to stay away from situations where it's present? In other words, I'm choosing to live in more sustainable, areas. That's where I spend all my time. Where the people of need are somewhere else. Do I need to go to different places? So you see what I'm saying? Is it that I'm not seeing it as I go, or is I'm choosing places and just staying there, and I'm not going to the places that may be 3 blocks away to see the need? And that's where I'm not sure where I'm being called in my own city today.
Yeah, the people that need help, the people that need the gospel, aren't just in some faraway land, like you said. They're in our own backyard. The people in Brentwood, Tennessee, need the gospel and need help in some way, shape, or form, just as much as someone in a third world country. And that is not to say that we should ignore the people in the third world country, but there's work to be done that's pretty close by.
I tell you what, this egomaniac with an inferiority complex sees in that text is, and I like the way the Common English Bible that JP read. I like the way it reflected this. Jesus is talking with a man who wants to prove Jesus wrong, right? He wants to prove that he's right, and he wants to prove that he knows the law, that he knows this, that he knows that. And so he talks about these commandments, and he talks about the importance, and then Jesus says, I don't think you get it. Since you're an expert in law, think about this parable. And then he talks about different components of the law. You got this priest, right? Surely a priest would stop, right? Surely priests would stop because that's what they're supposed to do. But no, they kind of sidestep. And then he says, okay, what about this Levite? Some think the Levite is actually a helper in the temple. A priest and Levite, they're all in the temple service there. And so you got these people who are elevated in society at that time, thought these are the people, if there's any people who know the law, that they're going to do the right thing, but they don't. It's this outcast that's on the outside looking in. He's the one who helps. He's the one who says, okay, this naked man, he's an inconvenience to me, yes, but I'm going to clothe him. I'm going to make sure he's got some food, some money, all of that stuff, right? And it's this topsy-turvy, aspect of Jesus's parables that I think is fantastic, that just blows your mind. And there's not one right way to look at it, right? There's so many different angles that you can get after it. And it's like, I think I got it right. I think I got this right, and then Jesus just throws you another curveball. Well, have you thought about this, Robbie? Have you thought about that, Robbie? You like to think you're right about this, but you haven't thought about this, have you? And so it's theological, it's practical, all of it, man. And in this one parable, before and after, it's just, and the 72 are sent out, right? And so here's what you think ministry's like, but you're not thinking like it should be. So all good stuff, man.
Well, and I think too, think about the person he chose, that Jesus chose in that story to kind of be the hero.
Yeah.
Telling the story about a Samaritan who did the right thing to a Jewish audience, a Samaritan who stopped and helped a Jew. More than it says the man went from Jerusalem to Jericho. It didn't say he was a Jew, but you can assume that the man was a Jew. Yeah. And so, the fact that he chose a Samaritan, a person that that the Jews, viewed with hatred, but they saw them as traitors to the faith, and the fact that Jesus chose and used that person as kind of the hero to teach a lesson about, like, when you look at people, are you considering their sacred worth? Because that's what it's about. Like, when I look at people in need, whether that's in my hometown or other places, like, do I see people and consider the worth that they have, their sacred worth? And the way that Jesus kind of attacked that angle by putting a Samaritan as being the one who stopped and helped that Jewish man because he, saw his sacred worth. Like, man, that punches me in the face, every time I read it, because how many times am I, passing people on the road? Any major city you live in has people out on the road. And how many times am I just trying not to make eye contact because I don't want to be bothered, right? Or I automatically, make up a story in my head of what they're going to do if I try to help them. So, and that's not the point. The point is, do you see a person and do you view them that they have intrinsic sacred worth? And I think that's the biggest challenge when I read through this parable.
I think that partly starts with viewing others as also created in God's image. Not one person that has ever lived was not created in God's image, just like each of us on this call. But a lot of times we don't even think of it that way. We don't see someone that he's also created in God's image. She's also, despite her or his, circumstances today, also created in God's image. And so, I think that's, one way to consider it is like, if we start seeing people like that, we might, that might, change the way we feel about them, or might potentially help us to I guess want help us want to help them because they are also us.
JP, you said something about thinking about the result, thinking about, if you do this for someone, what would the result be? And it's interesting in this parable, we don't know the result of this person. Yep. And so, but to me, there is friction between saying, hey, it's not my job to worry about the result. There's friction between that and also saying, but I also need to be a good steward. Yep. Right. And so to me, because if I keep throwing 2 days wages at people that have no change in their lives, right? Did I use that time, energy, effort wisely, when I could have used it somewhere else? So I just have a little friction between don't worry about the result, but also be a good steward, which means you've thought about, hey, is this where I need to use my time, energy, and talents? And so I don't know. I always have a little friction there, which to me, I believe, like, if I could say, if anytime I'm presented with an opportunity, like right now, my mindset is, I hope my mindset is, God, is just to stop and pray. God, if you want me to get involved, make that known to me, right? Because there's so many opportunities that we have and people we see. Yeah. It's just, if we believe in prayer and asking for wisdom and guidance, like, God, you want me to get involved with this, and see if he prompts me to do that. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Are you trying to answer that? Are you looking for answers? Do you want those answers to be yes? I think sometimes, and I phrase that horribly, I think sometimes we pray that prayer looking for the negative, like make it clear that I don't need to help this person, versus coming at it from I see what you're saying. Make it clear that give me a reason to say yes here. And I think that's such a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to pray, let this be a yes. Like, we kind of want, selfishly, our sinful nature kind of wants it to be a no. You know what I mean? Or maybe that's just me.
No, I'm with you. And that, but I think that tension is, that's the value that we have of being disciples, is that we're supposed to wrestle in that tension. Because if we're not asking on both sides, then it's like we can become calloused, right? And say our go-to is, I'm never going to help. I've seen too much stuff where it just goes south. Or we're irresponsible and say, I'll give it away here, give it away there, give it away now, give it all, all over the place. And so I think the tension's important, to be praying about it, to be thinking about it, talking with our elders and folks at our churches about it, saying, hey, what ministries do we need to have to really, set our church up beautifully? And I know some of your churches do, but to set our churches up beautifully for this type of conversation. It's all good stuff to talk about, to wrestle with it. And, I think if we're not wrestling with it, then there's something wrong with our hearts, which is exactly what I think Jesus is trying to get at.
That's right. Now, Ed, you brought up the church, and this is an opinion that I have, is that we have trained so much to do your giving through your church and your service through your church, that this parable is about, you are by yourself, out and about. Get to work. Get to work. And so
fair, for sure.
He doesn't go and find the deacon over the broken down man ministry. He takes care of it. You see, you got it right.
Broken down man ministry. The BDMM.
Yeah, Jesus never subsidizes doing to others.
That's right.
Yeah, good point. Fair. Yeah. T-Ville, what are your thoughts?
So if we were able to interview these, four guys coming down the road, probably the only, if these four dudes are standing at the pearly gates, if that's how it goes down, whatever, just for the sake of illustration, and Jesus says, to the Good Samaritan, come, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, you gave me meat. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. Naked, you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer and say, well, Jesus, when did I do that? And he said, when you did that to the least of these. You were doing it to me. And the other three, the entire time he's talking to the Good Samaritan, are going to be looking at the Good Samaritan sideways, or looking at Jesus sideways,
yeah,
are you kidding me right now?
No.
We have dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And not only that, we made it our job to make sure others were doing so. The reason we passed that guy by on the side of the road is because we were on the way to do the dotting the I's and the crossing the T's. And it's just I've just heard people talk about that passage that I just referenced in Matthew 25. Like the righteous are doing the will of the Lord unbeknownst to themselves. And you show up on Judgment Day, and you're like, when did I do that? And Jesus says, every single time you gave this image of mine 5 seconds, But our inclination, or at least mine, is to look at all the things I'm not doing. All the money I'm not giving, the places I'm not going, the houses I'm not knocking on. And the fact of the matter is I'm not Jesus, But like Ed was saying, the guy talking to Jesus whenever Jesus gives this parable is trying to trap Jesus, And I think I could be very, very wrong about this. But I don't bump into a lot of people anymore that are trying to trap Jesus. I don't bump into a lot of people that are trying to trap Jesus. I bump into a lot of people that are selfish, just like me, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one because I am very quick to look at what I am not doing and read this parable and be like, man, I have got to get it together. But at the end of the day, that mentality, the problem with that is I have got to get it together. I have got, and I'm coming from the wrong standpoint. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to communicate to his disciples the entire time he was with them. He was like, I have got it together. I have got it together.
Kevin, you saying that, I heard our lesson, this was several years ago. Look at in Luke 10, verse 38, the next story goes into Mary and Martha. And Jesus ends in verse 37, the Good Samaritan. He says, okay, guy, lawyer, you go and do likewise. Mm-hmm. Right? And basically gives him an impossible task. All right, just go and be like this guy, right? Well, then the very next verses are Mary and Martha, and you have Mary, or you have Martha, who's trying to go and do likewise, right? And she can't accomplish it, and Jesus says Mary's chosen the better way. Yeah. And so it's just, and again, I don't know if that's reading into those passages back to back, But again, like you said, Kevin, sometimes we can look and go, okay, how do I go do this? Because Jesus said, go and do likewise. But he follows up with someone trying to do likewise and going, whoa.
Yeah.
You're trying to do it all, and you can't.
You can't.
Do it all.
You cannot.
That's
not a license at all to be like, well, I'm gonna sit here at my house and take care of my, but whenever somebody asks for a cup of cold water and I give it to them, I don't chalk that up as kingdom work, but Jesus does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Good stuff, boys.
There's also a role to play for the innkeeper. He didn't have to take this guy in. This guy was probably in pretty bad shape. Wasn't sure that he would get his full compensation as promised by the Good Samaritan. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainties on his part, but he played that part anyway. He offered what he could, which was what he needed.
That's right. That's awesome, Sid. So something Rob said a second ago about basically you could get real reckless. The Good Samaritan, this could be misconstrued, as just being just reckless with what I'm blessed with, and 2 days wages, just tab whatever. I don't know, and this is another thing that we also try to figure out, and you were speaking of that, but the parable of the sower, aka the parable of the worst farmer in human history, it is either blind or just can't throw to save his life. It's just everywhere. Seeds are everywhere. I don't know a single farmer. I grew up in West Tennessee. I don't know a single farmer that made any sort of habit out of throwing seeds on rocks. But this farmer does, and he just throws it everywhere. And he's reckless with the gospel because he knows it's not up to him for it to take root. And the Good Samaritan and the innkeeper in both of the in this story are like, you know what? All right, we'll see what shakes out. It's just wild. It's wild. And I think that's the kind of faith that God is looking for. Just abandonment. Just
reckless.
Unrelenting, if you will.
We're up. There we are.
Here we go. And now, guys,
circle back.
We're glad to be here at the end. I think we've got we've got a lot of content, a lot of good stuff. We're missing one square tonight. We're sorry for the the unesthetically unappealing 5 square, 5 heads. I know that all of our listeners out there are used to 6.
We got it up to 9 one night.
Yeah. Say what?
We got it up to 9 one night.
Yeah. We're good for 5 or 9, somewhere in between. But we're gonna wrap it up. Anybody got anything else?
Take it home, brother.
Before we bounce, okay. Always want to thank every single human being that tunes in on a bi-weekly basis, whether it be in your car, your house, your bathroom, your camp, your office, or maybe your prison cell. I don't know if they're blasting this at some county lockup somewhere. Hang in there, guys. It's gonna be okay. If you'll send us your name and address, we'll put some money on your books. How about it? But yeah, thanks to everybody that listens. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Each and every one of you, keep coming back. It works if you work it.
Amen.
And we've got there's some guys here on the there's some guys here tonight, here every time we get together, that work at this more than others in the squad, and we are grateful for you. You know who you are. As an old preacher at a place where I used to be college minister, that's going to be your name in the bulletin and a star in your crown for that one day. So,
Yes.
so just keep up the good work. Yeah, and I'll close this out in prayer.
Thank you.
Yeah, God, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for these men. God, thanks for orchestrating everything that ever needed to take place to bring us together, and especially bring us back together 20 years later. Thank you for the walk that you bless us with, and we know that we are terrible and most likely a lot of times walking in the opposite direction. But we are humbled by your grace and your mercy to just see us through all that. God, thank you for our families and our friends. We're just blessed more than we will ever realize, and we're just looking forward to the day that all that is new is revealed, and we just get to have this old podcast for eternity. And we're grateful for Jesus, for his life, his death, his resurrection, and the forgiveness of all of our sins because of his blood and his power over the grave. God, thank you for everything that we have and everything that we do not. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Good time, guys.
Yeah.